All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Health and Fitness podcast, joined by my good friend, business partner, and personal health and fitness coach and mentor, Jim Brown. Jim, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Just we were talking before we hit the record button, but man, loving the new diet, love the new training routine. I mean, I'm only this is my second, I guess, full week into this now, dude, and man, it could be in my head, but man, I'm feeling great. But it's like, dude, I can see fucking daily changes in the mirror, dude.
Well, we're going from a space where you were training and surviving in pretty low glycogen, training not as frequent, to a place where you have glycogen now. You're training with glycogen. You have glycogen after the training, and you're training more frequently. So I think you're going to feel different. The training's going to feel different. I mean, that's what I would expect. And I think that's what you've related to.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's like, because I'm always one that is like, I understand what do I want to call this? Like our minds can play tricks on us, right?
Yeah.
So like, do this in my head or is it reality? So of course, I'm doing things of jumping on the scale or doing measurements, but it's like in my wife, dude, like when she's, come up, she'll like start like touching my chest, like, man, your chest is getting so much, right? Like in just a couple week period of time, even like all my shirts getting tighter in the shoulders, even though what's blowing my mind is I'm in a 500 daily caloric deficit right now. But dude, I'm pretty sure I'm gaining muscle mass. I'm definitely losing body fat at the same time.
It's crazy what carbs can do. I mean, who knew?
Yeah.
It's different though, in the way that, like, if I'm doing the carb cycling, and I really deplete, and then I do that load day where I'm eating, 1,000 grams of carbs or whatever, and I really fully load up. I mean, my shirt will be tight. And then by the end of the week, same shirt, right out of the wash or whatever, if I'm depleted, it feels looser. I mean, it's a noticeable difference. Then, you go to the gym and put some blood in there as well, with a fully carved up muscle. It's noticeably different. It's not in your head. You definitely should look and feel different.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I noticed and what I've discovered through this is, okay, I wasn't training with enough frequency. It was just kind of the old school bro split of, like back Monday, chest Tuesday, legs Wednesday, shoulders Thursday, arms Friday, So the first thing that I noticed with that was, dude, just the pure exhaustion by middle of day with the current diet that I had, which I was never zero carb, but under 100 grams a day, but higher fat. It was kind of like a 50% protein, 30%, 35% fat, 15% carb. It's kind of my macro breakdown, but I didn't have enough fuel to get through the day, but then switching, because I just went through my macros with you. So I'm at, 200 grams of protein a day, 200 grams carbs a day, 60 grams of fat, but just immediate difference of just energy to get through the day. But it was just my body telling me, like, dude, like training with now the right frequency you should be training with, like, you're not giving us enough fuel.
Yeah. It's amazing, man, what carbs. I mean, now, I'm in a little bit different situation where it's harder for me to hold on to muscle mass than it has been, say 5 years ago. And it feels like, excuse me, it feels like I have to eat carbs all day long to keep enough to have my training session feel decent, and that's somewhere between, 250, 300 a day. But it feels different to me than before, but I have to eat way more carbs than I ever have, to maintain and try to gain, I think, relative to, when I was trying to put on the muscle in the first place. But it's an interesting swap,
Yeah.
But training feels much different. If I'm undercarbed and underglycogenated, man, training sucks. I'll go in there and I can still move the weight. For the most part, still hit the reps that I think I'm going to hit the weights, all that stuff. But man, energy throughout it. And then we were talking before about the pump. It feels good to be pumped, man. It just does. It makes a workout cooler. For me, it makes a workout more fun. That's really why the workout feels so great to me. When my chest or my shoulders are so pumped, I can't lift my arms. that's fucking awesome. I mean, that's why I train, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And then, you know, one thing that I've just had to become super honest with myself with is I'm pretty sure I was just training like in maintenance mode previously.
Yeah.
Not just because I was, you know, only training each body part once a week, but you know, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do 16 sets, you know, per body part. But dude, those were not 16 working sets.
Yeah.
You know, I think the term now that everybody uses is junk volume or, you know, whatever. But it's like
Well, you were counting all your warm up sets and stuff to get there, or
yeah. So if I'm being
yeah,
truly honest, like, you know, and how I'm trying to train now is, you know, so like if I'm getting in, split up between you know, the twice a week sessions, but let's just say I'm getting in, you know, 16 working sets for
yeah,
back, you know, and that might be split between 2 sessions. Like those are 2 or very close to failure sets, not counting warm-ups. Where before,
yeah,
dude, it wasn't like if I really, you know, and I wasn't tracking it, which is mistake number 2, but yeah, I was probably doing, you know, I don't know, maybe 6 actual working sets per muscle group per week, which is
yeah,
probably just enough to just maybe get by and maintain, you know.
yeah,
So, you know, I'm really excited for this, dude, because I've kind of for a while I was just like, dude, maybe I just don't have the genetics. And I don't think I have amazing genetics for like to get
right.
massively yoked. But I'm like, dude, I don't even know what my genetic potential is because I was fucking training like a pussy for so long.
Yeah, man, there's that too. I mean, I would say that you or I don't have elite genetics to where we're gonna lift a weight and magic shit's gonna happen. But it's amazing, man. When you do the right things, you can really surprise yourself. You know, you may not ever have shoulders that look like bowling balls, like you know, a professional heavyweight bodybuilder. But from where you're training, especially if you were living in a space where you were very low glycogen, like you were, you're under eating, you know, you weren't in deficit for a long periods of time in the year. You were always either at maintenance or just under, you know, trying to stay and maintain a certain leanness, and you weren't training, you know, to the fullest potential that you should have. I mean, you added carbs and then you fixed the training, so it's a massive difference, man. I'm super happy for you. I mean, that's a really good place to be, you know. And I can tell too, you know, when I go in and I just put in a workout, it's not the same as, hey, you know, at least for 2 sets, I did 4, you know, 3 movements for chest. And on my 2 top sets, I went, you know, I fucking went for it. There's a difference, man. I'll get a pump from that. Even if I'm, you know, if I have glycogen, medium amount or high amount, I'll get a pump from that. If I go in and just put in, you know, a bullshit workout, it's hard to get a pump anymore. My body just, you know, it won't do it, even with carbs and glycogen. So it's funny. There's a, you know, it's almost like the minimum I have to do to get there, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad. It's me putting out for those sets, you know.
So this was something you said right before we hit the record button today, but you talked
Yeah.
about progressive overload, you
Yeah.
know, and that term gets thrown around a lot, you know, if you, for people that are, you know, kind of into the health and fitness industry and watching bodybuilding podcasts and whatnot. But can you break down like what that means and how that's applied when it comes to resistance training?
Yeah, man. So Dorian Yates, you know, I heard him on a podcast. He had the coolest analogy, and I think one that makes sense for everybody. But you know, when you take if you took a piece of sandpaper, rubbed it against your hand, you know, on day 1, you would tear off some skin. Of course, you come back in the next day, but a couple days, you know, you built up a little bit of a callus, and you keep doing that every day. Well, if you did that same movement every day, say you're using the same grit sandpaper, you rub it across your hand 10 times or whatever, your body's going to adapt to that. You're going to build up calluses where that doesn't do anything anymore. So either you're going to have to apply more pressure, you're going to have to get a grittier sandpaper, or you know, do more reps with it to kind of slough off that callus, and your body's going to grow back a tougher callus, a thicker skin. And that's, you know, kind of a rough way to explain this adaptation. But if you go in and you're doing a leg extension, you have 50 pounds on it, you've never done it before, you do 10 reps, you're going to be sore as hell. If you do that every week, I don't know how many weeks, couple weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks, you're going to go in there and do it and not be sore at all. and that your body, kind of adapted to it. Would you see a noticeable difference in the leg size? No, but you multiply that over, you've done that 200 times where you increase the weight and you force adaptation, then you'll see a difference in the leg size, if the nutrition's there. But that's the basic premise, right? So when I talk about progressive overload, especially in the Forbes training systems and stuff, and almost anybody that, has a training that's worth a fuck, you're going to have to kind of go in there and do something that you didn't do the week before. I mean, that's the idea. That's the idea behind the logbook and progressive overload. To expand on that a little bit, you have to find an exercise that you can actually do that. So if you're doing these stupid, one-arm curls, cable curls, standing there in the cable curl machine, and you got, you have the 1 5-pound plate on the cable machine, is that an exercise that you're really going to be able to throw weight on and become stronger and stronger and do? No, it's not. That's ridiculous. That's a joke exercise. Now, a standing barbell curl or a standing dumbbell curl or a machine curl, yeah, if you feel it and, you've tested it, and the way to test it is to do that exercise, perform it. And then if those muscle groups that you're trying to target get sore, well, that's a good exercise. Then is it an exercise that I can actually increase the weight on, progressively beat either reps or add weight to over time? Okay, like a preacher curl machine, like a dumbbell, like a dumbbell curl. And even on the dumbbell curl, sometimes that's a little limited too, because say you're a female or, you're a kid or whatever, and you're starting out, the jump from like a 30-pound dumbbell to a 35-pound dumbbell is a lot. That could be a lot. And so that's when, we used to have the magnetic weights where we would put on, and those were come in like, quarter pound, half pound, 1 pound, and you would stick those on to get more reps, because it was hard to jump from doing 10 or, 12 or 15 from 35 to going to 40. You might be able to get 6 or 8, and that wasn't enough. And so we would add on little weights to those, especially like shoulder raises. If you're doing dumbbells, it's hard to go from 35s to 40 or 40s to 45s. So back to machines and, cables and stuff like that, compound movement. So if you feel the movement, it works for your body part. If you can add weight to it, if it's something sustainable, I'm not talking like a standing or a crouching in front of a cable machine doing a 1-arm lat pull down, crap, something that you can add weight, like you're seated in, you're doing a pull-up, or, you're doing a machine pull down, or you're doing a row, something that you can actually add weight to and get strong with, because now, you might be doing a 35, but if you keep working at it and you're strong and everything goes right, in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you're going to be doing 335, 345s a side, 445s a side for 12 reps. And so that's, over the amount of time you're progressively overloading. So either adding weights or adding reps. And that's the principle, to force adaptation, because your body does not want to put on muscle. It's very costly, biologically costs a lot. It's not the homeostasis that your body wants to be in. And so you really have to force it to do that. And to do that, it takes calories and then adaptation or stimulus to adaptation.
Yeah. And it makes, because the body's such a brilliant thing, dude, where it will adapt to any environment. So
yeah,
you gotta keep changing, and I like that you say okay, either add more weight or adding more reps, because there gets to a point where, maybe you just can't do more weight, and maybe that's a safety thing or risk of injury or, but it's like, okay, because like, the way I've been training lately, because like I know we talked about this in our last podcast, but something I'm always thinking about is, look, dude, I still want to be snowboarding when I'm in my 70s and hopefully even in 80s. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I maximize muscle growth and still, stay, relatively, strong, but then also minimize, joint damage. And, so it's like, man, I can make, 135 under a bar feel as heavy as 225 by, through technique, but then through, slower eccentrics, pauses, adding more reps, but like in some way, shape, form, or fashion, if I'm hearing this right, progressive overload is just making it harder in some way, form, or fashion to stimulate the muscle.
Yeah, and you can do that a couple ways too. Like if you said you don't have to be putting on weight, you can make the weight harder. You can cut down the interval time that you're resting in between. You can cut down the ascent, you can slow down portions of the movement. You can pause at the bottom. And those are the things too that I've thrown in the workout that, I call intensifiers, like rest pause sets, full stop repetitions. Those are all tools to make the reps harder. And, you can use those, and, like on the leg press, there's a lot of, leg press is a great exercise for me. Well, I can not as throw much weight on by doing single leg press, or I can focus on quads. I can put my feet all the way down at the bottom of the sled. I can do 1.25 reps. There's all kinds of ways to make it more intense, but it's making it harder and making your body work harder for those reps or for whatever than it did last time.
Yeah. Or it's like if you normally start with squats, say, okay, go do stiff leg deadlifts first, go do lunges first, and then you end with those. Yeah, well, shit, half the weight feels double,
oh yeah, start your chest workout with 100 push-ups. That's or 100 pull-ups, whatever.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I did. Started off with what do you call them? DC pull-ups.
Yeah.
Where you're in a Smith machine or a power rack, you got the bench out where your legs are up, and man, I feel like such a deep, I feel so damn good, dude. But I did a shit ton of those. And then I went into bent over barbell rows. But the bent over barbell row, super slow eccentric, but as I was pulling up, pausing for 2 seconds, like at my, my belly button or whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, it got to the point where like, dude, I got down to just the bar plus 10 pounds on each side, and my back was just fucking on fire, dude. And usually, okay, if I start out with that, I might get, a plate on each side but just, it can make that thing so much harder by just changing up the way that you do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of tricks like that, but it kind of, I group that all into, the progressive overload. You're making it's the same principle. You're making it harder than it was last time, and that's forcing your body to adapt. But there's a lot of ways to do that. You don't have to be, work up to where you're doing, ungodly amounts of weight. I mean, that works too, but that at least in my case, there was a point where the weight led to injury. There was muscle belly tears and things that I think that just physically, it wasn't going to. And if you look at a lot of, not that I'm in the same class, but a lot of the bodybuilders who got big and really strong, that happened too. They eventually had muscle belly tears. But, in hindsight, I would have backed off the weight a little bit and, done some other stuff. But, that's not the way I was training.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, when it comes to, because that's one thing that I also discovered, dude, is like, okay, like when I would get in a squat, I'd squat down to like a 90-degree angle, but not like go all the way down, so now I'm really trying to make sure that like, I'm doing, full range of motion with everything. And fuck, dude, like it's kicking my ass. It was like, some of the shit I'm like, I guess I was just kind of getting away with partials, and making a difference. I mean, because they're at least, and I'll just like listen to some podcasts here and there. I don't follow it like you do, but there seems to be debates, between like full range of motion or partials or I mean, what's your experience? Are they both good?
Man, I've always thought I did what I call full range of motion, stretch at the bottom where my muscles stretched out. And it seemed to serve me well as far as injury and joint protection, fairly good. I mean, my injuries were due to, just the sheer amount of weight. And I had muscle belly tears, not, tendons and ligaments snap. So I think it's the best way to train. And then, for all the training, we do weighted stretches afterwards, right? So you get weight and then you stretch in those positions. And, that's been shown to increase muscle growth as well. And so you stretch with that weight, and that's partially to help you get to full range of motion. I just don't, there's a lot of guys, if you have limitations or whatever, cool, and you can't do a bench press where you're coming close to your chest or whatever, that's fine too, man, if that's what you got to do. But if you're going to build a big sweeping chest, I think you have to do a full range of motion, and then when it comes to legs, I never have done anything shallow with legs. And again, it served me really well. I had great leg development and was always super strong there. And I attribute that to full range of motion from day one.
Yep. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to like total number of working sets, like, okay, if you start getting to the point where you're not feeling any soreness and you are, working a positive failure, and I can't remember his name, but supposedly, and it's, I don't know, some doctor, but he's the most published, I guess, has more publications and known as kind of like the godfather of hypertrophy. Older gentleman. I can't remember his name, but I was just actually listening to a podcast with him not too long ago, and he was kind of saying that, like, in this, I guess, would allude to genetics, but he's like, look, I mean, when you are a great responder, you can get away with less, you get sore more, but so if you're a hard gainer, over time, like, it typically takes more working sets to stimulate muscle growth than somebody that's maybe a great responder. So if, I don't know, you are training, maybe you have a muscle group that's just very difficult to get sore, you just, as your recommendation to increase working sets, over that week, or just to not use.
Yeah, I mean, for me to ever get my shoulders to look decent, I was, just for instance, when I was big, I could press 315 for military press behind my neck for sets of 15, with a barbell. Any machine press, any machine lateral could do the stack for multiple reps. And, the volume was very high and it just wasn't getting it done. I had to do a lot more volume for me to really, and it came down to just getting a really ridiculous pump in my shoulders and keep doing sets and sets and sets of that and getting blood in there and flexing and doing those things. And it really wasn't a function of, just straight up, hey, I'm going to do a lateral until I'm doing them with 60-pound dumbbells. That didn't work. It took more volume than it did for the rest of my body parts. Now, a lot of guys will say that about arms too. In some of my programs, they'll ask, hey, my arms are kind of falling behind, or, my arms aren't responding. What can I do? And we throw in more sets, at the other end of the week. But that's really why that Monster Maker program, where I'm doing, you're doing your whole body twice a week, that helps with those types of issues, because if you have arms falling behind, you can still do them twice a week. You just add another set to them, right? And so the frequency's there. But I think there's some truth to that. A lot of guys that have difficult body parts or body parts that aren't responding will take away resources, meaning we'll stop doing sets and volume for the body parts that are great, and we'll put those to the weak body parts, because really you only have so much recovery that, potential in a week. And to do that, there's two parts to that. One is, if your great body parts keep getting trained, they're going to keep growing. And if your shitty ones aren't training enough, or you're not putting enough resources or recovery time into them, then they're just always going to lag behind. So we stop training the strong ones, and we keep training the weak ones with more resources, right? And so I think that's right. But for most people, it comes down to, you start really asking them questions like, yeah, my arms suck. Well, do you really curl? Well, not really. I'll do a couple sets here and there. I hate doing it. Okay. What do you do for triceps? Well, I do one arm standing on a ball, one at a time cable push down. Okay, man, this is a pretty glaring and obvious problem. But for people who really have a difficult time connecting with that body part, we'll do stuff like FML days, where you just go in and obliterate that body part, and it gets really sore, like really sore. And in my opinion, that helps you create a muscle-mind connection with that. And then those days that it's sore, we'll have you go in and test out different movements and kind of get blood in the muscle again, and, do a very light workout when it's sore. And you can feel the muscle better then. You can feel it flex. And that typically helps out with that. I can't feel it, or I don't feel it when it trains issues.
Yep.
But then, you're always going to have people that touch a weight and magic shit happens. And those people don't really count. They can do anything and anything works. So, those are the not the normal.
Well, at least as of now, I'm not having the soreness issue, man. I'm fucking sore everywhere all the time. Not for once a week to, and not just that I've went to change everything, train everything twice a week. But as I said earlier, man, I wasn't really training hard enough, dude. Like now I'm like, dude, it's like, dude, I'm pretty much sore for a solid 2 days. And then the next day it's time to train again. It's like, there's no soreness. but so I might have like a half day or certain body parts, maybe only one day where that muscle group isn't sore, but I'm pretty much fucking in a good sore, not like, can't move, so
Can't
much
sit on the
pain,
toilet.
but like, a good tight sore. And, so I haven't experienced that yet, but we'll see as we,
ramp up. And that's what it is, right? So I explain it, you really want, hey, I touch it and it's painful, but you want, hey, when I flex, I feel it's still sore. That's perfect. Then, you're going to have one day where you don't feel that, and then you're ready to train.
Yeah.
But it takes some time to really dial that in, it really does. And then it kind of changes too, because you adapt to that exercise, or you adapt to that timing, or, whatever. And you got to either make it harder or add weight or add sets. And then that, it causes more adaptation, probably get more sore from it, so it's an ongoing balance.
Yeah. Cause the dude that I was talking about, I don't know, whatever they call it, the I guess most educated published guy in hypertrophy, one thing that he did say on there, he was like, look, all the research studies that they've done, he goes, they had, even if it was beginners or intermediate lifters, but they'd only be training and focused on and measuring one body part. Like, let's just say it's quads throughout the whole study. So he's like, okay, maybe if they're a hard gainer, maybe they needed 35 sets, working sets a week to really stimulate that muscle versus, somebody had, might only need 10, that maybe is an easy gainer. But he's like, but here's the thing. He goes, none of these studies have ever been done, let's just say, on a bodybuilder that's doing, 200 plus sets for, because they're training, 10 plus muscle groups with that intensity. He goes, there's never been studies done with that. So we don't know, okay, if you're doing 35 sets a week per body part with all your body parts, like, can you even recover in that? Is that too much of a shock to the central nervous system? He's like, there's just, I don't know why, but he's just like, there's never been studies done to that magnitude.
And, you see it. There's some programs that just ramp up with this intensity that's insane that you can't really keep up with. And those, guys can do that for a little while before they really crash. But, if you talk to the guys, a lot of the people, they're all kind of the same. And we all kind of gravitate to the same thing where you're only doing a couple working sets per body part. You might do 3, maybe 4 exercises if you're really adapted, your recovery is really high for like chest, but you're not doing a lot of working sets to failure or close to failure, depending on what your philosophy is. But it doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't. It just takes those sets have to count. And if those sets really count, you don't have to do 40 sets. You don't have to do 8 chest exercises. It's a waste, and I don't think, I think there's a point to that where, you do 8 movements for chest. I mean, after 4, if you're training, if you're really training hard and going to failure, that's way too much. You're going to be sore for a week, which in my opinion is too long to be sore. Should be training your muscle more frequent.
Yep. So then, all right, dude. So when it comes to diet, I know we were talking before we hit the record button about, like with my, when I made these fat changes, I made a comment of, with a little bit of the research that I was doing, like, okay, you should keep your fat at about 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. Because if you get below that, like, negative shit can start happening in the body hormonally and, other things. Is that something that, I or others should be concerned with when they're starting to adjust their macros?
Man, I don't see that too much. Of course, most of the people that I'm training nowadays are on testosterone or synthetically maintaining their hormone levels. But even with natural guys, I don't know if it has to be quite that high, because depending on what your meat sources are, you're getting a lot of fat from your meat, right? Unless you're eating like boiled chicken breast and you're trimming the chicken off, before you boil it. But for the most part, you're probably getting enough fat from your meat without really adding a lot. I'd rather use those fat calories for carbs myself. Yeah. But, there's a balance there. I mean, you can tell when, especially with females, like their hair will start drying out and getting kind of crunchy, then that's somewhere along the lines of maybe too low. But in the terms of getting into lower body fat, sometimes that's what you have to do. But I think, it really depends. If you're able to eat that much fat and then still eat enough carbohydrates to really glycogenate and have the energy in the train and, the way that you're feeling now, then that's probably okay. But that would be the first place that I would take calories away from.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to get lean, first place is cutting the fat, and then protein, dude, just okay. If somebody's still gram a pound per per pound of body weight, or gram per pound, that's
if you're eating enough carbs, that's definitely in there. If you're on less carbs, then I would pump up the protein a little bit, still rather than adding fat calories. But like on my lower days, I'm probably closer to 1.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And then on the high carb day, I'm probably about 0.7. So it really varies. It varies on how much I'm taking in. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, you can general rule of thumb gram per pound of body weight, and then make up the rest with carbs. If you're going to be at your maintenance or in a slight deficit, whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, the what gets confusing about it is, dude, like I'm a research data guy, right? And so okay, you go read the research, whatever, and of course, all the doctors that are putting this stuff out doing the research, like none of them are jacked, and but they're like, oh, 0.8 grams is adequate for hypertrophy, but then it's like, okay, go listen to any bodybuilder podcasts. They're pretty much telling you between 1 and 1.5 grams per pound,
Well, and think about this too. So let's just say you're eating 2,000 calories a day right now, and you're eating, whatever you said, let's just say, 200 grams of protein, whatever the math, 2,400, whatever the math comes out, you're at 24, whatever your total calories were, but you're at 200 grams of protein and you're at 200 grams of carbs. Well, if you exchanged 100 grams of those carbs for 100 grams of protein, so you're eating 300 grams of protein, not all of that is going to be synthesized as protein in your body, and the calories aren't going to be different either. So if you were at 3,000 calories with the carbohydrates and you got rid of them, half of those, and turned them into protein, well, that 3,000 calories isn't 3,000 calories anymore. It's less because it takes your body more to process the protein. And specifically, if you're eating protein, it just costs more to break down and process in your body. Then if you need glucose out of that, it costs even more. And so, there's some protein diets where, I think they call it the modified protein fast or some bullshit, but it's basically a protein diet where you're in a calorie deficit, almost like carnivore. Like if you did carnivore with low fat, you can't eat enough, man. It's very difficult. It would be very difficult for me. Like if my caloric maintenance, my maintenance is 2,500, it would be very difficult for me to eat protein, lean meats to get up to 2,500 calories a day. And then, I'd be flat as shit. I wouldn't have any glycogen, but I would have a steady influx of amino acids all day.
Yeah.
But still, I wouldn't be recovering well. And, so there's a balance to it. I think, in the absence of carbs, you eat more protein. When you're adding more carbohydrates, you can back off on the protein a little bit. But because if you make it up with fat, it just doesn't work the same to me, because fat is the most, it's the easiest for your body to process calorie. Carbohydrates is second, protein's third, as far as how costly it is, how costly that calorie is for your body. And then you combine, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. It's a big difference, man. So it's easy. It's the easy thing to take away and have, get into a deficit or replace stuff that you can use with, like carbohydrates, is fat. You dump the fat just like you did. You dump the fat calories and you replace it with carbs. Well, shit, you feel the difference. There's a big difference there.
Yep.
In performance, in terms of lifting.
When I was telling you, before we hit the record button again, that, man, I wished fucking carnivore worked for me. Dude, it's such an easier diet. Like, I mean, cause I hate chicken. I mean, I'll eat it. Fuck it. Whatever. It's just, I look at food as just fuel, but, dude, I like freaking red meat. It's, and eating hamburger patties and, like you mentioned, bacon, I mean, I wish I could follow that. It's so easy. It's convenient when you go out to restaurants. It's easy, but dude, it just, for what I'm trying to achieve with maximizing, my muscle gain with getting lean, it just doesn't have the same effect, dude.
No, we talked about this before, but the people who are really, they're hardcore carnivores or whatever, they all look flat as a pancake. You can tell. You can just tell by looking at their physique. Even if they are lean, they're flat. They're fucking flat, and the training sucks. They might think they're doing well, but they don't. That's because they didn't eat. They haven't had a 200 carb day. That's the only difference. There was a guy that was causing some noise on Twitter, and he was doing some laterals or something. The guy's flat as a pancake. You could see it a mile away. My God, if the guy ate, had one day with 200 grams of carbs and went back and did that exercise, not only would he be fucking way stronger, but his body would respond better. His muscle would be full. He'd get a pump. Training would be fun. And God forbid he put on more muscle. It's just the way it is. I mean, the carnivore for a diet as an elimination diet, again, great. Do it. You got a problem that you're trying to solve, a medical issue that's not going away. Great, man. But you're trying to put on muscle. Okay. You're not going to win that argument. We're standing on fucking 70 years of experience of what bodybuilding looks like and what it takes to put on real muscle. I'm not talking like you look like a high school kid, but I'm talking about significant muscle where people look at you and go, shit, it takes carbohydrates. It just does. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you look at every bodybuilder's diet, like if you look at it's their job to maximize muscle growth, but dude, all of it's fucking protein, carbs, little veggie, and there's got to be a reason to it, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that math has been done. We've solved it,
Yeah.
But you got some weird issue, try carnivore. Yeah. It's an elimination diet. And, when people come to me and they have issues, that's what we start too. We start with very simple foods, very simple meat, and then we add in certain things to see how they digest it, how their body reacts. If you start having gas and you're bloated, okay, man, well, we're not going to eat that anymore. That's why I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I'll eat some vegetables that are okay, but, broccoli doesn't do well in me. It just doesn't. I'd be way better off with something like asparagus, squash, or something like that, or actually something that my body could use as fuel, like rice.
Yep. So, well, and this is one of those things too, where, because people can debate this, but it's like, I don't know, like I'm a tester. I mean, me, even though you told me, like you told me, hey, here's the plan. I'm like, hey, I wanted to test trying vegan. I wanted to test, more of the carnivore style. And it's just, figuring out what's best for you, which I would have stayed 5 years out of my life. I'd have just listened to you in the first place.
Well, it's good though. And I got to give you credit because you test and then you're realistic with the result, right? You didn't make up some shit like, well, I feel everything's great, on my old program or, whatever. It's like, I'll try it to see if it's better. And you dabble a little bit. Hey, I noticed this, so I'm going to add more or whatever. When we first started talking about carbs, you were trying a little bit out and then you tried the different frequency of workout and then you added more carbs. And I think it was a couple of weeks ago when you texted me or something, you're like, holy shit. It was like, yeah. So, that's the way, that's the way that I found my way. I have certain things that work for me that don't work for people and I wouldn't recommend, but I got there by, all these years of experimentation and I still experiment, as my body changes and I'm having to train differently than I've had to in the past, man, I got to keep experimenting too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting like that. And I give you credit for trying everything because really that's what everybody should do. They get stuck on, like the fat guy loses 50 pounds. Oh my God, this is the only way to do it. It's not, man. I'm telling you, it's not. You didn't find Jesus, brother. You just found a way that worked for you. And it unfortunately, it's just a calorie deficit. You didn't discover anything new, but that's how people get tribalized. I think, they get a result and it's like, holy shit. One of the things I did was like, okay, I got shape or I got ready for this contest doing this. Can I do it doing this? Or can I do it, cycling keto? Can I do it using insulin? Can I do it this? And those are, some of the ways where I didn't wasn't in the best shape for some of the contests, but every year I learned more and more and more, and that's really what I was trying to do.
Yep. 100%, man. Oh no. And I know we talked about this, I think in the last podcast, maybe. But man, it's cause it's so easy to get convinced on certain things. I mean, there was a point in time where, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, people asked me, I'd be like, oh, sugar's the enemy, eliminate carbohydrates, which then now it's like, okay, as I do a deep dive into, the research of it, I'm not saying all research is 100% accurate, but at least as of, from what I can tell, and again, I'm not an expert on these things, but it doesn't matter where, like if you're in a surplus and you have high levels of body fat, it doesn't matter if that calorie is protein, fat, or carbohydrates. All of them have the equal probability of you acquiring type 2 diabetes, as an example. So it's not sugar, right? It's the fact that you have too much body fat and you're a massive caloric surplus, right? It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter in humans and in rats, man, the research that has been done. And so then, now I'm just like, I start reflecting back. I'm like, why the hell did I fall subject to thinking sugar was the enemy?
I mean, we all bought into that, sugar, inflammation, all that shit. But really, sugar, I don't think sugar is very doesn't cause undue inflammation if you're lean. If your body processes it and it goes into glycogen, that's something that your bodies should be doing, and that I've done for years, over and over and over. Does it lead to inflammation if you're fat and that's turning into body fat? I think so, but to your point, so does fat. If you're eating fat and it's turning into body fat, I think that's inflammatory, all those things. And there was recently a guy, we're going to keep it pretty anonymous here, but he had a heart issue. He had a big scare. He got that taken care of. And then he got his heart scan redone. And it showed that there was a reduction in some of the soft plaque. His biomarkers looked way better. And this person lost a bunch of body weight, body fat. And of course, his doctor told him to go vegan, this particular cardiologist that he has spoken with. And so he went on a vegan diet. And, he was a pretty big gentleman to begin with. And, he's down like 60 pounds or something. But now, what do you think he's preaching is the cause of everything? Veganism. I'm like, bro, you're eating 20 Hot Pockets a day and you removed them. Anything was going to work. As soon as you lost that 20 pounds, your biomarkers started to improve. And by you hit 50 pounds, to where you're just now under 200 pounds, or I think 180 for a guy that's like 5'6" or something, it could have been anything and you still would have felt great, looked great, had the same result. But that's how people kind of get tribalized. For now, he thinks that eating a vegan Hot Pocket, even though he's in a calorie deficit, is better than eating regular Hot Pockets being in the same calorie deficit. So, that's how it happens, man.
Yep.
Which is okay. The goal is he wanted to get in better shape and he wanted to live longer, which I think it's going to be conducive to. But, it's funny how people that can happen and that causes, they're born again now, so we can go tell it on the mountain.
Yep. Hell yeah, man. Well, any last things to add here on the,
Carbs, bitch. No, I think it's important to experiment, and if you're trying to put on muscle, and you're trying, like we talked about, training's just way better, man. Training is better with glycogen. You feel it. I mean, really, when I think about the best times in the gym, or when I go for that feel, or when I'm in there, like, yesterday I did legs, man. When I did legs and I stand up from the leg press, or I get out of the pendulum squat or whatever, and I flex my quads and they're fucking completely full, and it feels like my skin can rip. That's really the best joy in the gym. That's when training's fun. And that's also when I recover better. And, I know I'm going to go back in and be stronger next time, and all the good things happen. But, that's something that I've experimented with, and that's my truth. If I go in there and I'm flat and I train, I don't have that same experience. Training isn't as fun, and I know I'm not going to recover as much. So, I would encourage you, if you're not doing that, to try it. If you think that carbohydrates are going to make you fat, just make sure you're in a deficit. They don't. It's not the carbs, it's the calories.
Yeah.
And you can eat a lot more carbs if you get rid of the fat, right?
Yeah. And I'll be the first to like, because I see this shit all the time. Even there's this one doctor I follow on I don't know, Instagram or Twitter, one of those, and he's always and he's got some interesting shitty posts, and but then he's in the camp that eat whole foods and you don't need to count calories and you won't get fat, and I'm like, dude, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just
certainly could.
Somebody that gets fat, but I'm like, dude, like I'm fucking living proof that, dude, like I have not cheated on my diet. 100%, like whole foods, clean sources, and have gained body fat. Yeah, right. When you're in surplus calories, it's like it doesn't matter, dude. Like you're getting fat.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's so crazy. Just eating whole foods. Yeah, I could eat chicken and rice and get fat. 100%. I could eat chicken and broccoli and get fat. But it's I don't know what his particular angle is, but maybe it's just to get to people to eat whole foods. I don't know. Yeah. But it's true, man. Yeah. It's funny. There's all kinds of stuff out there.
Yep. 100%. All right. Well, that's a good place to end it. And for everybody watching, listen, make sure to check out Forge Life, FORJLIFE.com. That's Jim and my supplement company. Check out our nootropic on there. So if you're looking for more mental energy to get you through the day and more just overall focus, want to be focused at work, whatever you do, that supplement's absolutely amazing. And then our other supplement is for eye health. So if your eyes get strained from sitting there looking at our devices all day long, if you're feeling tired middle of the day, most of that, or not most, but a big percentage, at least from my own experience, and I know Jim's as well, is just a lot of times fatigue just from eye strain and looking at all these devices, super hard on our eyes. So we've got a great supplement for that that'll treat that alertness and keep your eyes super healthy with all the access to blue light and all the screen time that we get today. So again, forgelife.com. Truly appreciate you guys watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Peace.